Hello, everyone. Welcome to SSUC Online. Whether you're joining us for the very first time or for the umpteenth time, we are so grateful that you're with us. Grateful for your presence. We don't need to all be in the same room together for our presence with one another to be real, to be significant, to be valued. It matters that we take this time to sing together, to pray together, to seek wisdom and sit with our questions, to consider our lives, our loves, our world, to spark insight, and to fire our commitment. And whether we are in a moment of gratitude for what is, or in a moment of grief for what isn't, whether we're in a place of restlessness, or whether we're in a place of calm, whether we are with our wounds in this moment, or caught up in our wonder, we make real pathways to one another, even in this virtual space and in this very real time. We come together as the geese are returning and the songbirds are bringing the morning to our prairie and boreal land, as daylight grows longer and hints of spring are in the air. We come mindful of where we make our lives, the hallowed ground of the indigenous peoples and the earth creatures. And whether we live on unceded territory or treaty lands, we make our home on the sacred ground of generations of First Peoples, of tribes, of nations, those who learned the wisdom of our land. We who gather in this space in South Edmonton acknowledge that we are partners with our Métis and Cree First Peoples in Treaty 6 territory. I'm joined in welcoming you today by my teammate Chris, by Deb on the piano, Noah on the guitar, Catherine on bass, Jim on drums, Katie accompanying the trio, Blair, Pam, and Jim giving us leadership in song, Brett and Darian in the tech booth helping us bridge the distance between this space and wherever it is that you are in this moment. We come to continue our exploration of the geographies of the heart. And today, on this day that is Palm Sunday in our tradition, we consider the spirituality of the street. We consider where our heart invites our feet to take us, where the world's deepest need of us meets our passion for a more compassionate, just, and equitable world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again, and thank you for joining us. Perhaps you, like Joyce Williamson, have a candle set aside in your home that you light every time that we're together. We always invite you to light a candle as we light ours, because it's a way to connect us. It's a small ritual that has great meaning for many of you and for each of us that gather here in this building. To know that you're lighting your candles along with ours is an act of solidarity, an act of community, and an act of togetherness. So we invite you to light your candle this morning as we light ours. Let this candle remind us all that we are connected, not just those of us in this community, not just those of us who know each other, but this connection, this light, this spark of humanity, of kindness, compassion, of justice and peace, of love. This spark connects all people, all creatures. And as we contemplate the way we walk our walk and talk our talk on the streets that we walk, may it be a reminder for us that we are connected globally, intimately connected. And that brings great responsibility, but also great joy. And so in our lights, may there be a reminder.
To this day I bring my life, born of hope, born of sand, yearning joy where now there's strife. All I have, all I am. Help me to see what I must see. Help me to be where I must be. Restless faith abide till all are free. Fill my life, turn my hand. Today I bring my life, born of hope, born of sand, yearning joy where now there's strife. All I have, all I am. Help me to see what I must see. Help me to be where I must be. Restless faith abide till all are free. Till my life, turn my hand.
We have sung our prayer that we might bring our full selves to this day. Echoing the pattern of a prayer passed down in the Jesus tradition, words shaped by Bob Hetherington, we strengthen our intentions with one another this day as we offer this our prayer as we seek to live well, to live wisely in the world in which we find ourselves. We pray with one another. We open to the sacredness at the heart of all, called by many names. We open to deep mystery. We trust to be love. May we be faithful to the vision of building a beloved community on earth. May there be daily bread to nourish all hunger, forgiveness for the harm we have done, and the capacity to forgive those who have hurt us. May we not feel abandoned in hard times, but find the strength to meet each moment with the courage to walk in the light of deep gratitude, for the light of love is with us now and forever. Amen.
On a day that has been in our tradition a day of protest, a day of parade, a day of marching, we will share a story entitled Praying with Our Feet. It's a simple story, but it reminds us of the way for generations that we're called to the streets at key times, important times, in the midst of violence or hatred, in the midst of war, in the midst of injustice. It's a place where we can be heard. And so we share this story by Lisa D. Weaver, illustrated by Ingrid Hess. This is Praying with Our Feet. Praying with our feet, that's what my mom called it. We're going to pray with our feet, she said. Following the footsteps of the peacemakers, that's what my dad told me we were going to do. Walking in the light, that's what our minister said at church last Sunday. We're going to walk in the light of love. Today we're going to pray for peace with our feet. Too bad I can't walk that far, laughs my neighbor, when I run over to tell him where we're going. I look at his wrinkly skin and white hair and the cane in his hand, and I think he must be about 150 years old, even though my mom says people don't really live that long. Then my mom calls to me. I wave goodbye to my neighbor and run through the yard to my porch. I bend down and strap on my sandals. I'm ready for the peace walk. People are gathering on the church lawn where the walk is going to start. I see a lot of people I know. There's my aunt from across town with my baby cousin in a pack on her back. There are so many people, and we're all here to walk for peace. Our minister steps up to the front and starts us on a song. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel? No, I'm gonna let it shine. When the song ends, we're off. We're going to walk all the way to a park on the other side of town. It's a long prayer, my mom says. I walk beside Dad. I point out to him all the different feet around us. Sandals like mine, sneakers, boots like the kind my grandpa wears when he works on his farm, office shoes on a woman who just came from work, my little cousin's bare toes wriggling, and even a pair of rollerblades. I guess prayers come in all shapes and sizes. As we walk, I spot green yard signs in front of many houses. I recognize those signs. I helped make them at my church last weekend. Dad and I were in charge of stapling the posters to the wooden posts. When we were done, we put them in neat piles, ready to hand to anyone who wanted them. The sign says, "War is not the path to peace." They have a photograph of a mom holding a baby in her lap. It looks just like the way my aunt holds my baby cousin. Dad says this will help folks remember that in countries where war is, people have families just like us. I also see blue signs of peace. They say war is not the answer. Dad tells me that a man named Martin Luther King Jr. said those words when there was another war. Dad says that Dr. King organized a lot of peace walks. Dr. King knew how to pray with his feet. As we walk on, I remember last week when Mom walked right into one of the office buildings downtown. She went with our minister and other grown-ups in our church to talk with some people who work in the capital city. Mom said they are our government representatives. They are some of the leaders who make decisions about what our country does. Mom told me she felt a little nervous and her legs were shaking, but she went anyway. She said it's very important to tell our leaders what we think about peace. Later, I heard my mom tell my minister that not only were her legs shaking by the time it was her turn to speak, so was her voice. But Mom said she kept thinking about words of Jesus like, love your neighbor, and she knew she had to speak. While we walk, I remember that my minister often says the voice of Jesus is love. Every person is our neighbor, not just the people who live right beside us. And that makes me think again about my 150-year-old neighbor who does live right beside me. I am sorry he couldn't walk with us. He told me he wanted to come. He even put one of our church signs in the middle of his yard as soon as I brought one over to show him. But I guess his feet have gotten too old and too tired to pray. I'm thinking about my neighbor as I walk, when, all of a sudden, I see him. My neighbor is standing beside his car at the entrance to the park. He's leaning on his cane with one hand and waving with his other hand at everyone walking by. When my aunt passes, he tickles my baby cousin's tiny toes, and she laughs. I run up to my neighbor and hug him, but I am careful not to knock him over. "You're here," I say gleefully. "Yes," he answers. "My feet may not be able to walk far, but they can still pray. I came here to stand for peace." My aunt and my baby cousin, my mom and dad, my minister, my 150-year-old neighbor, and me, walking for peace, wiggling our toes, standing in the light of love. We're all praying with our feet.
Sing this song for the turning of the world, that we may turn as one. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echoes of our turning. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echoes of our turning. Let us sing this song for the healing of the world, that we may heal as one. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echoes of our healing. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echoes of our healing. Let us sing this song for the loving of the world, that we may love as one. With with every voice, with every song, we will move this world along. With every voice, with every song, we will move this world along, and our lives will feel the echoes of our love here.
In this liminal space we find ourselves in now, Sikh activist, civil rights attorney, and author Valerie Kaur believes that revolutionary love is the call of our times. These are some of her words taken from her writing See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love. If you cringe when people say that love is the answer, I do too. The problem is not with love, but with the way we talk about it. We mostly talk about love as a flood of emotion, but feelings alone are too fickle and fluid to sustain political action. Social reformers through history led entire non-violent movements anchored in love as an ethic. Time and time again, people gave their bodies and breath for one another, not only in the face of fire hoses and firing squads, but also in the quieter venues of their lives. Black feminists like Bell Hooks have long envisioned a world where the love ethic is a foundation for all arenas for our society. I believe we can reclaim love as a force for justice for a new time. Love is more than a feeling. Love is a form of sweet labor, fierce, bloody, imperfect, and life-giving, a choice we make over and over again. If love is sweet labor, love can be taught, modeled, and practiced. This labor engages all our emotions. Joy is the gift of love. Grief is the price of love. Anger protects that which is loved. And when we think we've reached the limit, wonder is the act that returns us to love. Revolutionary love is the choice to enter into wonder and labor for others, for our opponents, and for ourselves in order to transform the world around us. It's not a formal code or prescription, but an orientation to life that is personal and political and rooted in joy. Revolutions do not happen only in grand moments in public view, but also in small pockets of people coming together to inhabit a new way of being. We birth the beloved community by being the beloved community. When a critical mass of people practice together in community and as part of movements for justice, I believe we can begin to create the world we want, here and now. In these words, may we find wisdom for our living. Every family has stories that it keeps telling. Stories that are passed down through the generations. Stories that are seeded in history, in things that really happened in time and space, but blossom and bloom best in the world of storytelling, because the story is what matters. Every tradition has stories that it keeps telling, stories it keeps reenacting. Beginning last evening, our Jewish brothers and sisters began to celebrate the Passover, retelling the ancient story of liberation, eating symbolic foods as a way of retelling a legendary story of survival. It's an ancient story about a road to freedom, a journey of escape from economic and social and racial injustice. It's a story about finding a way out of no way. In the Christian tradition, we have our share of pageantry as well. Every year, near winter solstice, we put a pregnant woman on a donkey to make a long journey from Nazareth to her ancestral village in order to register for a census. We give her a manger in a stranger's stable to serve as a crib for her newborn child. And we bring shepherds to celebrate and angels to sing and magi to offer exotic gifts. And then on the last Sunday, before the full moon after the spring equinox, on the Sunday before the festival of Easter, we place that grown-up child on another donkey, and we have him ride down the road from the village of Bethany into the streets of Jerusalem. And we line the streets with joyful pilgrims welcoming this rider as a liberating hero. But we usually have the cast of characters wave palm branches and sing hosannas. And then we stop the story right there on the road, in the middle of the street. But this is how the first century storytellers complete the story. As Jesus came near and saw the city, he wept over it, and he said, "If you, even you, had only recognized on this day the things that make for peace. But now they are hidden from your eyes. Indeed, the days will come when your enemies will set up ramparts around you and surround you and hem you in on every side. They will crush you to the ground, you and your children within you, and they will not leave one stone upon another." And then Jesus entered the temple and began to drive out those who were selling things there and said, "It's written, this house shall be a house of prayer, and you've made it a den of robbers." Every day he was teaching in the temple. The priests and scribes and leaders of the people kept looking for a way to kill him, but they couldn't find anything they could do, for all the people were spellbound by what they heard. It's a story that gives us the complex geography of a heart that's broken open by anger and grief, a heart that's traveled lonely roads, navigating confusing intersections, that's well acquainted with the terrain of tragedy and of violence and of fear and insecurity, inequity, It's a heart that follows the curve of its passion by taking to the streets. In our march toward Easter, we come to this day each year with our palms and our hosannas, but the story doesn't let us off that easily. Despite how we've named this story and this day in our tradition, there is no triumphal entry into the city to witness. There are tears to be shed and tears to be shared. There's no confrontation with an occupying army. There's no insurrection. This homegrown ticker tape parade with its borrowed ass and its rider goes straight to the temple. But Jesus and his friends don't exploit the stage to incite the soldiers by burning a effigy of Pilate or Caesar. In the world of the story, he doesn't ascend the steps of the temple and make a speech rallying the peasants to confront the military. He doesn't try to start a riot. He has brilliantly mocked the power of the empire and its religious collaborators without saying a word. Over the next few festival days, those peasants who ought to have been protected by the institution of the temple will be making a pilgrimage there to offer their sacrifices before they celebrate Passover. They'll be forced to pay their temple tithes and the Roman taxes, and then to ante up a little more to line the pockets of the temple elite. Ironically, they will be forced to participate in the very system that is exploiting them as they come to reenact their liberation from an earlier domination system. So naturally, the target of this passionate protest is the temple, which is making an ass of itself. This clever piece of street theater demonstrates the power of taking to the streets, the power of revolutionary protest that isn't found in shouting sound bites of rage or making death threats. There's no point to stand up and make all the right points. A rant won't change anything. It's not enough to be angry. Unless the rage leads to engagement, the street scene will only be a moment. It will never be the birthplace of a movement. In the world of this story, the street is not a geography in which to incite violence. It is the place to critique and envision, to deconstruct and reconstruct, to imagine and articulate another way, to offer an alternative, another possibility. The story doesn't end on the road with the cheers, nor does it end with the critique of their leaders and their institutions. The story says he stayed and taught. And the people were spellbound by what they heard. And the authorities were powerless to silence them, to silence him, because imagination had been lit. The street is where we build brave spaces together, where we have the courage to find the intersections, where we can meet opposing opinions and conflicting interests and contrary values and competing claims with the power of the tears that took us there. the places where we can listen rather than make noise, the place where we can build a new road, one brick at a time.
We're going to do a song that was written by Brian McLaren. He's up next. It's called One Brick at a Time, Building a New World. We lay one brick at a time. We take one step at a time. In this revolution of the heart, building a new world, one brick at a time. And we throw our stone in the pond, its wings go far beyond, till all God's creatures are circled in, building a new world, one brick at a time. The old world falls apart to make way for the new. Don't be afraid and don't lose heart. Love is breaking through. And we mix our dreams and our tears, make our motor strong. Oh, binding together earth, sky, and song, building a new world, one brick at a time. We hear the cries of the earth, we feel the pain of the poor, we challenge the systems of greed and war, building a new world, one brick at a time. When the old world falls apart, make way for the new. Don't be afraid and don't lose heart. Love is breaking through. What we do might seem small, and we may never know, but the smallest thing, when done with love, multiplies and grows, one brick at a time. And the old world falls apart to make way for the new. Don't be afraid and don't lose heart. Oh, love is breaking through. Oh, Lord is breaking through. We lay one brick at a time, and we take one step at a time. In this revolution of the heart, building a new world, one brick at a time. One brick at a time.
Revolutions of the heart are built one brick at a time, one step at a time. As Valerie Kaur reminds us, revolutions don't just happen in grand moments in public view, but also in small pockets of people coming together to inhabit a new way of being. We birth the beloved community by being the beloved community. We tell this street story not for its poems, and search as you may all 4 versions of the story we have, and you'll never find one. The closest you'll come is John's telling of the story that gives us them waving leafy branches. We tell this story not for its poems, but for its passion, for its peaceful protest, for its power of imagination, for its invitation to make our way into the streets with our tears and our rage, to the brave spaces of hard places within ourselves, within our families, within our neighborhoods, within our communities, within our workplaces, within our world. Ours is a time that calls for unprecedented creativity, a time in which we need fewer soldiers and more artists, more teachers, more visionaries, more builders, more community makers, more imagination and ingenuity in this time to expose injustice and envision equity with a kind of cleverness that disarms, like the fist in a velvet glove. If our creativity were to take to the streets, imagine the conversations we could have. Imagine the peace we might make. Imagine the alternatives we might see to terror and violence and hatred. Imagine the bridges we might build.
I'd gladly walk across the desert with our soles upon my feet to share with you the last bite of bread I had to eat. I would swim out to save you in a sea of broken dreams. When all my hopes are sinking, let me show you what love means. Love can build a bridge between your heart and mine. Love can build a bridge. Don't you think it's time? Don't you think it's time? I would whisper love so loudly every heart would understand that love and only love can join our human hands. It is my heart's desire to see everyone live free. The first step is to realize that it all begins with you and me. heart's our finest tower. We can do anything, everything, if we keep on walking out the power of love. Love can build a bridge between two hearts and minds. Love can build a bridge. Don't you think it's time? Don't you think it's time? Love can build a bridge between two hearts and minds. Love can build a bridge. Don't you think it's time? Don't you think it's time? Don't you think it's time? Love and only love. Love and only love.
With gratitude for the live music in the room coming to you, we're thankful for all those who've participated in today's music. An opportunity to share just a few invitations to you. Coming up very shortly, at around 11:15 Mountain Time, we will join in a coffee chat on Zoom today. Please feel free to drop in to that short time to just connect with each other. If you don't have the link from your e-messenger on Friday, then there's a website on your screen where you can find that link to connect with us very shortly. Next weekend is Easter weekend, and there's a few opportunities to gather together online. On Good Friday at 7 p.m., we're going to join together as a community on Zoom, a chance to be face-to-face, to experience the story that gave us the day of Good Friday, and to be one another in a prayerful way. That's April the 2nd at 7 p.m. on Zoom. Then you're invited to join us on Saturday evening via live stream for a dramatic reading, the radio play version of The Velveteen Rabbit, put on by some familiar faces of SSUC. That's April the 3rd at 7 p.m. You'll join via live stream just like you're joining us right now by Facebook or on our webpage. And Easter Sunday, next Sunday, 10 a.m., join us by live stream for our morning gathering. This is an announcement that comes to us from the Emberwood crew. This is an SSUC and Emberwood collaboration called Saturday Saunter. It's for young adults, 18 to 39-ish. These Saturdays will be comprised of an imagined hike, as you explore contemplative practices centered around the four elements. It's a 6-part online series. It's Saturday evenings, April 17th to May 22nd. And Allison is asking that you register to reserve your spot at emberwood.ca, just so that numbers can be approximated and that you can be slotted to pick up your hiking guide on Sunday, April 11th, that will prepare you for these sessions. So an exciting joint venture of SSUC and Emberwood. We thank you for all your support that you've given throughout this time apart. And we are so excited to know that you have supported all of our efforts in not only bringing this live stream to you, but in doing so many of the important things that our community is known for reaching out, for speaking up, for supporting those efforts and issues around the globe that need us. And so thank you. If you'd like to participate in those efforts, please do so by donating in any of the ways you see on your screen.
We've got the strength, we've got the courage to face today. We've got the strength, we've got the courage, come what may.
Times of deep unrest, days when pain attests, revives the truth of love's abiding song. We've got the strength, we've got the courage to face today. We've got the strength, we've got the courage, come what may. When our hopes run deep, when our climb is steep, we recall the truth of love's abiding song. We've got the strength, we've got the courage to face today. We've got the strength, we've got the courage, come what may. We've got the strength, we've got the courage to face today. We've got the strength, we've got the courage, come what may.
Strength and courage is what's required to stand, to walk, to speak, to act, to pray. In this world that throws us a new curveball every week, it seems, may we have the courage and the strength to do all those things in love. And with our tears, joined with our actions, create what we need to move forward step by step, brick by brick, bridge by bridge. In this week, may you go with that strength and courage. And take the light with you. This light that may not stay looking like this. It may dissipate, it may strengthen, it might fill the whole room, and then the world. May you go and be well this week, and until we see you again, goodbye.